What's up, sculpting maniacs? What's up, glue sniffers?
Don't sniff glue.
What's up, plastic
sniffers?
I'm Eric, and this week I'm going to be turning this Starbucks creamer lid into an old beaten down robot head. Stick around. This episode, something happens. There's something that doesn't happen that usually does happen. It's never not happened, and you're not going to want to miss it. People are going to be talking.
Everybody's gonna be talking.
It's not that exciting. So here's the Starbucks creamer lid. You might notice it's not the same color as the one in the intro. It's because Starbucks went and changed their packaging halfway through this build. Luckily, the shape stayed the same. It still looks like a goofy little robot face no matter which way you look at it. You could really use the front or the back of this thing, but I'm going to use the back because I think it looks a little cooler. For the eyes, I'm using caps from my beard oil bottles. I'm tracing out the sockets here so that the caps can be recessed a little bit into the skull rather than just glued on top. To cut the sockets, I'm using a wood burning tool with an X-Acto blade attached. It slices through the plastic really easily, but man, it really smokes. So you definitely want to wear a respirator and work in a place with good airflow. Once the holes are opened up, the eye caps drop in nice and snug. And then for the top of the head, I'm going to use this Heinz 57 cap. It already fits really nicely, but first I need to sand both surfaces so the glue will grab. And then I use foam clay to fill in around the eye sockets so the caps have something to bed into. Shout out to my friend David Lloyd, who donated me this hand-me-down iPhone 12 as a second camera to use. Still getting the hang of how to incorporate it into these videos, but I really appreciate it. What a mensch that guy is. If I had a million friends like Dave, I'd have a lot of iPhones. Here I'm using some foam clay to build up the area between his eyes and where his ears will eventually be. Then for his ears, I have these two little scoops that I got from a container of colostrum. Colostrum powder is supposed to be good for your fingernails and your hair. Definitely what gives my hair its shiny luster. Nothing to do with the fact that I'm a greasy old hesher who only washes his hair once a month. Next, I cut into the foam to make some room for the ears, then scuff it up a little bit so the glue grabs. For the ears, I cut up a protein powder jug lid to make the antennae. I layer a couple pieces together for thickness and dimension and glue them in place. I don't want him to look too symmetrical, so I go in and cut up his other ear and glue a small cap inside so it'll look like the outer shell is broken and there's some robot-y stuff exposed inside. For the crown, I used the top of the Tahine lid that we used in the last build. Then it's time to build him a little collar and neck. For the collar, I grabbed a shampoo cap and drilled it through with my hobby drill. Then I mixed up my usual weathering goo, Weldmon, black and white gesso, baking soda, and some brown paint. Normally I'd throw sand in there, but at this smaller scale, I think the grains would look too big. For the neck, I cut a piece of corrugated plastic tubing and covered that with the weathering goo as well. Once that's dry, I apply some baking soda and CA glue to the surface to give it even more of a crusty look. I do all this on a scrap of milk jug plastic to keep the CA glue from sticking to it. It still takes a little bit of doing to get it off, but nothing compared to other types of plastic. Then I took that wood burning tool and I went in to apply some damage marks. I wanted the whole left side of his head to look like he'd been on the losing end of a robot fight. Honestly, I pushed it a little too far. If I had it to do over again, I think I'd back off. It ended up looking a little more like Hamburger Helper than metal damage, but whatever. Foam clay didn't give me the look I was going for around the eyes, so I switched to 2-part epoxy. It's easier to shape and holds detail a little bit better. Also, I really should have been wearing gloves while I was doing the mixing part here. Handling the pre-mixed clay can cause skin reactions. Once it's mixed, it's perfectly safe to use without gloves though. I took his jaw off because I decided it might be cool to have some visible wires hiding back behind his teeth. For the wires, I cut up some old guitar strings, then I poked them all into some foam clay to hold them in place. I really like the way this looks. Kind of makes me want to do a build where the robot doesn't have a jaw, so I don't know, let me know what you think of that idea. Once the foam dried, I added some CA glue and baking soda to fix them in place. I went with a white primer for this one. I'm going for a more vibrant color palette with this sculpture, so the white should help the colors pop a bit more than a black primer would. Then I painted the areas that I know are going to be rusty with a brown base coat. If you've watched any of my previous builds, you'll know that I often paint things in one color and then cover it with a different color, only to go back and repaint it with the original color. So I'm trying to work a little smarter here. Then off camera, I glued his jaw to a little rod so I can paint it on its own. Check out that dope bracelet my son made for me. I taped off some racing stripes and tried a few tricks to minimize paint bleed. First, I burnished the edges of the tape with the tail end of my paintbrush. Then I applied a coat of matte medium to keep the paint from seeping in under the tape. Only then, after hours of careful prep work, did I lay down the stripe color. Obviously, all that prep work really paid off. Just look at those crisp, clean lines. If you made it this far without drafting a stern letter to YouTube, please consider liking and subscribing, or just leave a friendly comment. It all helps keep me motivated. The second stripe came out a bit cleaner than the first. I guess it's like making pancakes. First one's always garbage. Here I'm sketching out some different ideas for the graffiti. I couldn't decide between Zaz and Bob. I went with the word Bob because most of my builds are all inspired by Old Bob from the movie The Black Hole. If you haven't seen that, check it out. Old Bob really resonated with 5-year-old Eric, and it's probably a big reason why I'm doing this today. I plan on painting him mostly orange and red, so I put down a yellow base coat first, so I only have to do 5 coats of orange instead of 25. Then I go in with a black base coat for his inner ear because I know I'll be painting that metallic and it'll go easier over black. And while I have some dark paint on my brush, I go along the edges of the rust just to add a little extra depth where the paint ends and the rust begins. Here I'm using some shuttle art markers to draw in the graffiti. If you look in the background, you'll see I actually did a fair amount of sketching for these. We've got Max as a nod to the Black Hole's villainous robot. But it's not all Black Hole references. There's a ghost doodle for our inspiration song, Old Souls, and some Van Halen stripes because why not? On the back, I added the word door, another loose nod to the black hole. I'm not sure if it was in the script or not, but I always thought at the end when they're in the black hole that it's just a door to another universe. Maybe that was just me being optimistic. It's been a while since I've seen that movie. It's too bad. This graffiti actually turned out great, but nobody's ever going to see it because it's on the back of his head. And then after that, I glued the jaw back on with some more CA glue and baking soda. To age it, I dabbed a sponge in brown and some of the base colors and just chipped away at the paint a little bit. Then I hit the metallic parts so they look scratched and worn. Then for the neck and collar, I layered brown and reddish orange and yellow to bring out that old rusty look. Then time for a Noosh acrylic wash. I just gloop this on really thick and then wipe away until I've got the amount of grime that I'm looking for. This part is both super fun and a little terrifying. It still smeared the markers a little. I thought I figured out which ones worked with Noosh, but I don't know. Maybe it's dependent on the color or how long you let it dry. But it went better than previous times. I saw in a video about Dirty Down that you should warm it up a little bit before using it, so I thought I'd give that a shot. Honestly, it didn't really seem like it worked. I think this bottle's just getting old. It might be time to replace it. Apparently once you use this stuff for a while, it kind of loses its potency, but I don't know. It still creates a realistic rust texture. There's just not as much color variety as I would have liked. I'm not quite ready to attach them to the plinth, but I do need to start thinking about how the neck, collar, and head are all going to fit together. This part's always super tedious. Just lots of cutting, recutting, and general fiddliness. Now I've got some bass strings courtesy of Indianapolis sludge metal band Karitzis. Link in the description. Check them out for some authentic Midwest metal that's heavy as all get out, son. These look amazing, but are a real pain to get positioned correctly. You'd think they'd be easy to wind around things, but at this length they're surprisingly stiff and difficult to work with. That said, I'm really pleased with how these came out. Expect to see more bass string necks in future builds. Once those were in, I went back with a fine brush and touched up some metallic edges just to keep things from blending together too much. It's around this point I was convinced this whole thing just wasn't working. It didn't look like what I had in my head, and I felt like I'd kind of blown it again. But I decided to power through instead of start over, and adding these little metallic highlights definitely helped define the edges and just make things look a little more like real metal instead of caps and plastic. I also go in with some paint and markers just to punch up some of the colors that got a little muddy after the wash. For the eyes, I printed out some designs and glued them under glass cabochons with Glamour seal. It takes practice, too much glue and you get bubbles, too little and they don't stick. It took me several attempts to get any of these to come out right. I tried a bunch of different options for the eyes, mixing and matching them until the combo felt just right. It really is all in the eyes. And I liked quite a few of these, but I settled on the 1X and 1/. It makes them look busted, but still charismatic. If you're mad I didn't choose your favorite, send a self-addressed stamped envelope to P.O. Box 666. Now all that's left is to get him on his plinth. Not the most exciting part of the build, but it is pretty essential. While we watch, how about some shout-outs? Shout out to Mikhail Diaz, apologies if I'm butchering your name, for the music suggestions and all the emoji. If you like Year of the Rabbit, go check out the Life and Times and let me know what you think. Shout out to Volt the Robot for his very enthusiastic comments that hit right when I needed some inspiration. Shout out to Nalgo de Satanos for the channel's first ever foreign language comment. We've got Spanish covered now, but that still leaves about 7,100 spoken language comments available for a shout out. Get on it, internets. That's all the time we have for shoutouts this episode. If you didn't get one, I'm really sorry. But leave me a comment, there's always next time. Everything came together nicely in the end. And did you catch the thing that didn't happen this episode? I never had a Bob Ross moment. I don't know if I'm getting better at scratch building or just better at ignoring the voice in my head that tells me everything I do is crap. Either is probably a good thing for me, but then again, is it really art if there aren't any happy accidents? Let me know how you feel about it in the comments. All right, here he is. I'm actually pretty happy with how this one came out. I do wish the rust on his head looked a little bit better, but I think the overall gestalt, the overall vibe.
I hate vibe. I'm gonna say gestalt.
I think this guy looks pretty dope. I'm pretty happy with it. Thanks for sticking around. If you made it this far, you truly are my friend. Glamour shots are coming up next, and while we watch those, we're going to listen to the song Old Souls by the band The Life and Times.
I'm Casey Kasem.
If you're into Failure, Hum, Shiner, and you haven't heard The Life and Times, I think you're lying to yourself.
To your family, friends.
Old Souls is off their 2009 album, Tragic Boogie. For me, Tragic Boogie is them at the top of their game. Every song on it's a banger, but something about Old Souls just felt perfect for this old Bob-inspired sculpture. It's a little melancholy, a little dreamy, a little dark, a little sweet. Just like you.
That's it for this episode.
Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for being my friend. And as always,
Keep making it weird.